All right, I believe we have kept you all waiting long enough. It is time for one of the hottest incentives. It's time for Silent Hill 80% from ICEMAN.
Howdy, I'm ICEMAN. We're going to be running Silent Hill today. To the left of me is Koodle Soodley, also known as Koodles. Probably biggest inspiration to running this game and submitting it and everything else. She's probably going to be here making fun of me. And to my right is Devo, the man himself, who is pretty knowledgeable on the lore and speedrun of this game. He's going to be helping me through it. What was the incentive winner for today?
Incentive winner is a good ending by about $100.
Oh, nice.
Because I don't know the lore on the UFO ending at all, if there is any.
All right. Ready to start when you guys are? 3, 2, 1, go. So the game has 5 different endings. It has bad, bad plus, good, good plus, and then UFO. The good ending, which is what we'll be doing tonight, is the longest and probably the most challenging one of them all, as I'll have to save Kaufman, which is an extra minute or two, and then I have to kill Sybil, which requires more ammo, and it's an extra boss that I've got to tackle.
I guess as well, just given that we're going to be sort of skipping a lot of the context for the story of the game, the main objective of the game is to find Harry's daughter. Harry is widely considered the best dad in the world, or at least in the survival horror genre of gaming, and he's come to Silent Hill with Cheryl, and for whatever reason, as we'll find out as we go through the game, she's decided to take off, and he's in a big hurry to try and catch up with her.
As you'll see, we've all dressed up in matching sunflower shirts. In the audience at the moment is Mango Punch. She'll be running Resident Evil 2 on Saturday. Unfortunately, there was only 3 mics, so she's decided to sit out and watch from the sidelines. But we all dressed up together, as well as everyone else from our little friend group sitting in the audience, which is great. And it's nice to see everyone getting involved, especially how much has been donated so far just on 1.5 days. It's incredible.
Oh, we couldn't let you do the UFO ending. That would be too easy.
Yeah. I remember specifically putting 100 in, and Shadow put 100 in as well to make sure that you got the toughest ending.
This whole intro sequence is really remarkable because the camera work was pretty much directly lifted for the first film adaptation of the franchise. It's actually really cool that you see it in speedrun.
What is this? What's going on here?
It's also something technical in terms of speedrun about when you enter the alleyway for the first time. I think if you approach it on a certain angle, Harry actually ends up further in the alley.
Yeah, so earlier, just as we started, there's an alleyway that we entered, and if you approach it from the road, the game will run Harry further down the alleyway than if you approach it from the sidewalk. And the in-game timer doesn't count for loading zones and cutscenes, so since the game gets timed by in-game timer, it actually saves 3 or 4 seconds running on the road instead.
What's that? Huh. Radio. What's going on with that radio?
Get introduced to one of the main mechanics of the game here, which is the radio. It's kind of emblematic of the game developers doubling down on using sensors other than sight to scare the player.
Harry? Cool.
This is not
Is
a
it
dream.
3-shot or 4-shot ideal?
4 shots ideal. For some reason, he missed the 5th shot, and it took me 6.
Classic
That
Harry.
was nice. Loved it.
It was either Harry or Icy's aim, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, look, if this was Leon S. Kennedy, we'd be blaming Leon, but it's Harry, so we're not. Sorry, Icy.
That's all right. So right off the bat, the game would usually tell you to go down that same alleyway you were in the dream. However, Harry's been in Silent Hill before, and he knows that he needs to get 3 keys to continue, which the first one's just down this alleyway here. I find that the introduction of this game is pretty like open world, and it scares a lot of players away on their first playthrough because they just don't know what to do or what to get. But you know, if you explore just enough, the game kind of points you in the direction that you need to go, which is really nice.
Yeah, you can, ICEMAN's about to do something in about 5 minutes, and the first playthrough you'll probably spend upwards, around 2 hours just exploring. A lot of the buildings in the town you can actually go into, and, you don't have to go into those buildings, but the developers put them there to make the town feel more realised. The realisation of an American town is very interesting in Silent Hill, especially when you compare it to Resident Evil, where a lot of the shop fronts take on an Americanized sort of an appearance, but the actual dimensions of the streets are more like Japan. Whereas in Silent Hill, they're very wide roads and large streets, which is more like a small American town. There is also a stamina meter built into the game. Does that change with the difficulty levels?
Not too sure, to be honest with you. Oddly enough, there is a stamina meter, but Harry never runs out of stamina. He just starts panting when he
just keeps going.
Yeah.
Like you when you run.
I can run for
2 seconds. You need your puffer at least.
Yeah. Harry's a machine. He can run for the entirety of Silent Hill and never run out of stamina, but yet there is a stamina, invisible stamina gauge in this game.
What Icy's doing now is he's able to sort of not sequence break the game, but he can bypass a lot of progression just because of prior knowledge, so he knows where to go get the keys. But normally the player would go to a house and they'd find 3 padlocks, which where Icy's about to go. So some things in this game you can shorten just based on knowing where to go, but there's also some stuff in this game that requires Harry to know about stuff, like you can't actually collect a key from a kennel until Harry reads a note. The game does that a couple of times. It's a little bit jarring.
I do like the doghouse one though, because if you don't pick up this white note that we're approaching, and then you go to the doghouse prior, he's like, it looks like a doghouse, however there's no dogs around, despite the 2 demon dogs that are about to kill you in frame.
Yeah, there is a very common Silent Hill 1 meme that you see on Twitter at least once every few months of a still from this game where there's a dog just flying straight towards Harry, and he's literally saying the words, "There's no dogs around," pretty much.
So the bad plus ending is ultimately the fastest way to run the game, as you can use the Aglophidus to save Sybil using a glitch, and you don't have to find Kaufman and save him in the resort town. It's as mentioned earlier, it's 3 or 4 minutes quicker, but thankfully the shotgun's pretty good in this game. It drops off damage the further away you are, which I guess is kind of normal for modern games these days, but for 1999 was pretty unique, I feel, at least, having damage drop off. Oh, thanks, Bird.
They did a lot of things right with this game, especially it's a big town, and somehow they managed to make a PS1 game in the late to late 90s where not everything looks the same. Everything's pretty well signposted. Could be like a bit of blood on a wall, and that kind of points you in the right direction. And a lot of the buildings and streets sort of look different enough to where you get your bearings pretty quickly, no matter where you are.
So thankfully you get control of the flashlight we found at the cafe, and you could honestly run around the entire game with it off and the enemies won't attack you, but it's pretty dark, you don't really get to see much, so I'll keep it on for as much as I can to at least be able to see something and see what we're doing. You'll find me turning it off as we enter rooms, just because there's enemies just outside that door, and while it's off they won't attack me pretty much unless I'm right in front of them.
It's one of the more difficult parts of the run mechanically, especially if you don't know the exact line to take through a room, because you need to turn the flashlight off, and you're you know, making it twice as hard on yourself to get the right line through a room. Just like, this is a bit of an easier one, but there's some rooms and hallways coming up in the school where Icy will have to turn the flashlight off, like this one right here.
Probably the most irritating thing with Harry is if you take more than 7 steps, he'll, as you approach a door, he'll kind of like run into it before he opens it, as you saw there. And it's probably the most infuriating thing about this run, as you'll see me approaching doors on an angle or slowing down just before entering them.
You don't like bonking into the 11th Street door?
Don't be too far. Nice.
So you might be wondering why everything's gone sort of dark, and it's sort of part of the bigger story of the game. There's some key locations in the town that you as the player go through, and over time they'll kind of transport into this sort of nightmare realm. And sort of forms like comes together sort of towards the end of the story as a bit of a twist, but it's not all bad what's happening. It's in some ways it's kind of a good thing, but you know, the way you experience it as the player the first time, you think, oh, this is a really bad thing that's happening. And the sequence of this school is kind of similar to, it's not like Harry knowing about the puzzle, it's more you need to do certain things in a very specific order, like what ICEMAN's trying to do at the moment is get into this sort of clock tower, so he can take a ladder to go down into the alternate school. And to do that, you need to collect these 2 sort of emblems, a gold one and a silver one. And you can't get the gold one and then just go straight and get the silver one. You need to insert the gold one, and then you can go and get the silver one. Otherwise, this piano puzzle just doesn't work at all. It's a bit of a weird sequence that they put into the game.
I love that puzzle so much.
You remembered it this time.
While I lost the door there. While practicing, I kind of forgot that puzzle, and I have a habit of.
Used the map as well. You used the map a lot. He used the map
The
like
game
at least 3 times per run.
You should have had an incentive to not use the map.
But that piano puzzle, when done as intended, I just really love how the poem works with the keys of the piano. It's probably one of my favorite puzzles out of every game that I've played so far.
Yeah, I'm ashamed to admit I spent way too long thinking about that puzzle the first time I tried to do it.
I struggled with the piano puzzle a little too much. I was a little broken when I played it.
I just didn't get it at all. There's another puzzle later in the run that I totally overinterpreted.
I hate the overthinking puzzles part. That's the worst bit.
If there's any donations, feel free anytime you'd like, by the way. There's just a lot of running and door opening.
Absolutely. Well, considering now that we've had to close off the ending incentive, everyone's now moving on to the Final Fantasy VII Cloud's name incentive. We had $20 from Anonymous, who puts that straight towards it. Sorry. We had another $10 from Diesel, who says, "Is the name joke dead yet?" And we also have $10 from Radshaz. It says, "Another $10 if Iceman gets the romper glitch on the first go. Good luck, mate."
Doubtful.
So yeah, later on, just after the hospital, we head to the antique shop, and there's a glitch that saves a total of 1 minute and 31 seconds. Whoops. And it requires a romper to push you into a loading zone at like pixel perfect, pretty much angle, and it's pretty tricky to pull off. And I end up spending more time doing it than I do.
1 minute 45 seconds or more.
I spend more time trying to do the glitch than I do saving the time save that I would have got from doing it first try. But we can hope. I'll still attempt it regardless.
It saves a lot of time, right? It's an order of minutes, really, because you bypass an entire boss fight with it.
I thought it was only like 1 minute 30. It might be 2 minutes 30. It's been a while since I timed it.
Either way, it takes you 37 seconds longer.
So there's a good running gag amongst our little community of gamers and speedrunners alike, where a good while ago, I did Resident Evil 2 knife only, the 1998 version, and the final boss, the knife decided to stop working as I was counting on number 37. And I forgot to grab the ball, that's nice. And I sat there, I was just like 37, 37, and ever since then that number has just haunted me with every speed run and everything anywhere. For example, I did a Resident Evil 3 knife only a couple of weeks after that, and I jokingly said, oh, if it appears in the final time, I'll do Resident Evil 1 knife only afterwards. And sure enough, it didn't appear, but if you add up the hour and minutes together, it added up to 37, and just it's been everywhere since for the last 4 years. 3 years, sorry.
Well, 37 is definitely following you here because chat is absolutely full of it right now.
As we were parking, we parked in a U-Park that had 537 parks left. It's affecting us all, honestly. None of us can escape it.
This is another one of those puzzles in the game where Harry has to know that there's a key in a drain hole. You can't just put the ball and turn the valve. You've got to go look at the drain hole, otherwise he won't do it. Classic Harry.
And I guess it confuses a lot of players too, because you come through in like a second playthrough, you think, oh yeah, I just have to put the pink ball in, and it just doesn't work. You sit there for ages trying to figure it out until you realise, oh, I've got to actually look at the key in the drain.
Another good example there, just above that drain hole, is some signposting, a whole bunch of blood all over the ledge there, which, for a game that came out at this time is really, really good, and it really needed it because obviously the aesthetic is very, I would say, cohesive is the complimentary way to say it. It all looks very similar.
So these little purple boxes here are going to be my saviour for today. They're the shotgun shells. Being a good ending, I'll need to collect 2 more than what I usually do, which I figured out the other day that I haven't played the good ending in over a year, and I spent ages trying to figure out where a good shotgun shells to pick up in the run would be, which I found out was just the basement of the school.
Ah, the bit that Shadow Volk jumped at.
Yeah, we've got our friend Shadow Volk in the audience today, and probably a year ago I think it was, I was running him through this game for his first time, and he flinched, he jumped at that little body, and we've never let it down since.
It's alright, you're not the only one. You might be wondering why we're in a school to begin with. I guess it's good to fill in a gap there, because in this route you don't actually go and read a document that points Harry to go to the school, but if you're playing the game casually, Harry would suggest to go back to the alleyway, and you'd find a drawing there left by his daughter Cheryl suggesting to go to the school, and so that's why you come here.
So this alternate version of the school, all the hallways have been blocked up, which makes it kind of like a labyrinth, hence why there's been a lot of running around and grabbing keys and stuff. We're coming to the end of the school now, and our first boss, as soon as I go down these set of stairs here pretty much, which when I was tempted to... I have a habit of, or an admiration should I say, for playing games with just the knife, and when I did this game with knife only, this school boss was something that terrified me for a good while, as you can only really do a lot of damage to it as it opens its mouth, but if you are there for too long it's an insta-kill and it eats you. So I think I spent a good couple of hours practicing it, and then just the knife fight alone for my first attempt was 20 minutes long from first, the one that I succeeded at least.
Yeah, I remember.
Sorry,
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, for some viewers that haven't seen any Silent Hill gameplay and have seen Stranger Things, it represents a Demogorgon pretty well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the locations that take on like a nightmare version, could probably be described as like the Matrix, except instead of a computer, it's like the brain of a traumatized child, pretty much. I know it sounds really grim, but that's pretty much the best way I can describe it. And it's sort of hard to understand what you're experiencing when you play through this game the first time, because even by the time you get to the end and the story sort of has all of its drops, it still doesn't quite click the first time through.
Yeah, a lot of the lore of this game is hidden in like chalkboards and newspapers you can find around the place in optional areas, which I find very interesting. The game doesn't really tell you what's happening unless you look for it.
So like this boss, for example, is based on a kid's storybook that you can find in the library of the school, and it's like a bit of lore, but also it's telling the player how to defeat the boss. It tells a story about an archer, and the archer just kind of stands in front of the beast until the beast opens its mouth, and then he fires the arrow and kills it.
But yeah, that was the first boss. Didn't last that long. We're running on easy mode, which is the preferred category for most runners. I don't even think there's a hard mode category to upload to, which makes sense. It's a bit of a tricky one sometimes, because as the difficulty increases in this game, they start putting more enemies. So these hallways here are just flooded with those grey children with knives, and it makes it quite tricky to get through it. But since we're playing on easy, it was only 3 shots to get him to open his mouth, and then, as Deborah described, the arrow through the mouth, we only have to shoot him twice once his mouth is open.
There is a ranking system in this game, so at the end of every run you get a rating out of 10 stars, and I'm not sure, but is there a category for 10 stars in this game?
Yeah, I believe so. I think they've got it in the miscellaneous category, last I checked at least.
Yep. Be about is that the closest thing to 100%? Do you have to do good plus ending for 10 star? I don't know.
Yeah, you do.
Right.
The 10-star rank on this game is very unique, in my opinion, because to get it, you have to have beat the game 5 times on the same save file, beat the game in less than 90 minutes, collect a certain number of items, both special and common, and then not only that, you have to kill a certain amount of enemies at different ranges with different weapons. There's a whole sheet that just explains like the most easiest way to do it, and it's still a mess just reading it sometimes. But
Zori's just mentioned in the chat, there is a 10-star rank, and it's run on hard mode since you need 5 clears to achieve it.
yeah, that's
And
correct.
each clear, the difficulty increases. Right.
That bird was adamant. Yeah, that's another thing I forgot to mention was every time you beat the game will just up its difficulty. So, for example, if UFO ending was to win tonight, you'd need to play on a New Game Plus save, which would put on normal difficulty, or hard if you really wanted to. So pretty much while we're in the school, we started to hear church bells, which is why we've kind of head to this church here. We find this like crazy woman, absolutely whack woman. She's her name's Dahlia Gillespie. Probably the antagonist of the game, pretty much. And she's something special. She looks like she's wearing a Persian rug and then a giant tie that's like half her body.
Yeah, the first time you play through the game, you will actually think she's there to help you or to guide you. But if anything, she's just misleading Harry. She tries to, convince him that what's happening in the town is basically the work of the devil and he has to stop it. And as the story kind of unravels a little bit further on, it turns out that, she was more or less lying to him and couldn't be further from the truth what was really going on. Now, there's a line here that is really difficult. I know that this particular line to go up that set of stairs is super challenging.
Good one.
So most runners just slow down for that.
Yeah. Harry's turning circle is not the greatest, and you'll find out later there's a lighthouse. The lighthouse itself... What are you giggling at?
You.
Okay. The lighthouse is like a spiral staircase, but Harry's turning circle isn't tight enough to go up it, and it's a constant struggle of just running and then walking and then running and then walking.
In the practice room, I made sure to say that in like a really weird voice because I knew that you were going to bring it up eventually.
There's a bunch of lines in this game that are really challenging just because of the geometry, but also the frame rate just takes a nosedive in certain areas, like that room that ICEMAN just came out of where he's brought the bridge down. There's probably, 10 frames per second, 12 frames per second? It's really low, so it's quite difficult to get into that room quickly and grab the item, and interact with the lever and get out.
And usually you wouldn't get to see the amusement park on a bad plus or good plus ending because you save Sybil with the Aglophidus, but since we are doing good, we're going to run past a merry-go-round probably 20 minutes from now, and that thing drops the PS1 down to like 5 FPS. It is not designed for this game.
Which is interesting, right? Because the draw distance is not that dissimilar to the streets, but I guess just all the geometry. Oh, you should have let that cutscene play out. I should have remembered to mention it. So when you go in there, you meet Kaufman, and he's kind of the head of the hospital, or the one in charge, and he has a revolver, except it's loaded with rubber bullets pretty much, because he points at point blank and Harry and just like shoots twice and seems to not do anything to him. Not taking the map. It's bold.
Sorry?
You're not taking the map. Nah. That's very bold.
He definitely needs it.
Oh,
Maybe you should coach him through.
I wouldn't. I'd get lost even worse.
Okay.
Sorry. Is there some water I can have it all?
I'm not sure.
So without giving too much of the story away, just to, I guess, contextualise what's going on in the game, most of the locations that you visit in this game, the school, the hospital, they're all basically linked to a girl called Alessa Gillespie. For those who've been paying attention, you might be able to join a couple of dots together there. But Alessa was a student at the school, and she grew up in Silent Hill, and she was also at this hospital for quite a long time for reasons that'll become a little bit obvious later on in the run. I don't want to spoil too much of the story just yet. But as Harry, you tend to visit a lot of locations that have a lot to do with Alessa.
Sorry about that. My throat went like really dry while talking.
Can't say what I want to say.
You'll notice a lot of things in this game as well that kind of, I guess, like cause you to question, like your sense of reality. You can't really place a lot of trust in it when you play this game. Literally at the start of the game, you see the main character die, and then he just wakes up in a cafe with Sybil, and right then in that elevator shaft, there was only buttons for 3 floors, and then magically there was a 4th button. And a lot of that's kind of got to do with sort of it's a psychological horror game, but it's largely influenced by David Lynch's work on Twin Peaks, where there's sort of like these divergent realities, or these parallel realities that run alongside each other, which is what you're seeing here with the hospital kind of turning into this like different nightmare version of itself.
Shaz said too many black long runs.
Would you like to explain that one?
No, I'm good.
So, the game I like to run the most, or one that I would say I'm probably best at, is...
Not really.
You're so annoying. Would be Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PlayStation 1. To the point where I felt like extreme difficulty wasn't hard enough, so I started running the game with the cigarettes equipped for the entire game, which puts your health down at 1%, and you just become a one-hit kill for the entire game. And I feel like the community has just dubbed it as the black lung %. And I guess that's what Chaz is referring to. Oops.
So you'll see also like pretty much all of the hospital staff, if you look closely enough, if you get a chance to, when
Iceman's
running past them all,
when
they
he
have
calms
these
down.
they have all these larvae attached to their backs. And you'll see like a lot of references to insects, creatures, caterpillars, and larvae throughout the game.
So unfortunately, the hospital is just kind of like a door simulator. I'm just constantly opening and running through hallways.
It looks like not a lot of what's going on, but the routing here is kind of complicated. I always get lost in hospital.
It was the one that took me the longest to learn. Especially because floor 2, the doors are shut, or they're locked, sorry. So you have to enter from the first or third floor stairwell.
The hospital's kind of divided up into 2 separate sections. This first one, you need to collect these coloured tablets, and then later on you're trying to get access to a basement area.
So pretty much all we need to collect now is basement key and disinfecting alcohol. And then we can head down to the basement and get out of the hospital pretty much.
Is that nurse RNG, or do you always have to just kind of push up and then push or shoot her to get around her?
You always have to shoot her. It just kind of depends on how she falls. If she falls like that, you kind of just have to wait for her. But if she falls towards the door, then you can run past and get in a little bit quicker.
Right. Is there any other RNG with the enemies in the hospital? I think there's one other nurse, right?
There's one other nurse that we'll have to kill in Nowhere. Similar situation, she's just in the way. But as for their positions, they're all the same. It just how they move afterwards is kind of based on where I'm standing. So it kind of feels like RNG, but you can kind of manipulate it as well, depending on which way you're running.
Can I just mention that Spanky only just noticed we were here?
I'm disappointed in you, Spank. We're going to have words, man. It's fair enough. It's gazing into ICEMAN.
Yeah. Something
he's
like that.
He's only human. This is one of those weird sequences that just out of nowhere has a really high frame rate.
Yeah, this one and like the elevator later on in Nowhere just for some reason feel like it runs at 60 despite the PlayStation's limitations. But while we're here in this basement, feeling familiar, Devo, would you like to explain what business ethics is and how they are applied today?
What was my last answer? It was like 2 years ago you asked me that question. I've already forgotten.
And you were like...
Oh, I didn't have time to answer the question or something. I don't know.
You're like, where do you keep coming up with these things? But don't tell me you came up with this yourself.
Yeah.
And I told him it was from Billy Madison and he lost it.
Oh. I thought you were about to ask me about some law thing in the game or something, but you just completely blindsided me with that.
He was sitting there with the paragraph, like the actual line in the practice room, trying to like memorize it to say to you.
It's a good thing that you remembered the hospital route then, at least.
Speaking of business ethics, do we have time for a couple of quick donations?
Yeah, feel free.
Awesome. Because we had $37 here from Mango Punch. It says, Mr. Iceman, the American business environment has fundamentally changed. Following the insider trading and savings loan scandals. Explain business ethics and how they're applied today. Donation to Final Fantasy VII name. And we also had $10 from Conquest, who says, enjoying what I can watch while this is going on. And I want to throw my $10 into naming cloud. Name Blitzball.
Was I dreaming?
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mango.
So that key there, that little green one on the table, it's very common to forget that, and it's the worst thing ever because you run all the way to the antique shop and it's just like, it's locked, you cannot enter. and I've lost plenty of runs just from forgetting that one key. But given that, we are heading to the antique shop, which is where the romper glitch will be, and I can only hope that we can get it done, and I hope that I don't die either.
Have you thought about a cap for the number of attempts, or are you just going to go all the way?
I'll keep doing it until I run out of health. And then when I'm on danger, I'll go fight the boss instead. I think is pretty fair.
Yeah. It's like such a hard skip to get. Even the top runners will, often have to get it first try, and it's just so difficult to get. You see a lot of resets on this skip at the sort of top level world record level.
Everybody's saying that your cap is 37. And now 37's being spammed in the chat.
Good. Oops. There's a cutscene first.
So during the cutscene at the end of the hospital, we actually get the key for this antique shop from Dahlia. So this is her shop, and Harry finds a little hidden secret in her antique shop, which tells us a lot about Dahlia. She's got some sort of weird altar down in the basement out the back of her antique shop.
It's pretty interesting growing up. I watched my mum play this a lot when I was young, and she's kind of the reason why I know about this game. And in return, my dad was the one that played Resident Evil, so that's how I learnt that game. And I probably wouldn't have known or played either of them without both my mother and my dad, because they both just loved two separate two separate horror genres, and here I am running this one for today. Come on, romper. I was nowhere near the staircase.
Cooked that one.
It's good that at least you can reset it, and it's pretty much the same every time. It's not like he's different the second or third time if you need to leave the room and come back.
Yeah. Oh, I got it.
There's 4.
Nice.
Cool. I am on caution though, because I can feel my controller vibrating, but I will not argue with 4. I'm happy with that.
You said your PB was something like over 6?
Yeah,
7?
my PB for this game had 6 attempts on the romper glitch, so...
So right now, ICEMAN's basically just walking under a plaza, where normally you would fight like a caterpillar, and now he's just landed on the roof where you fight the follow-up to the caterpillar fight, or the larvae fight. He's got to go to the hospital first and then come back. Do you need to go to the hospital? You can just go straight up.
You have to go trigger the cutscene with Lisa first, so that the game's just like, oh, you're here now. Okay, let me spawn the boss for you.
Yep.
Kind of like a little trigger.
What would you say is like mechanically the most difficult thing about this speedrun? Is it the movement or the routing or?
I reckon it's the quick turn. Because you have to press L1 and R1 at the same time, but then there's no input delay except for quick turns for some reason. You can press those 2 buttons and it still takes Harry like 2 seconds before he turns around. And unfortunately, there's a lot of quick turning in this game, and it's probably the hardest thing that got me used to it. Because I used to spam it, and obviously he'd be just sitting there spinning around like an idiot.
It's actually a lot of really advanced movement, like the strafing, which ICEMAN will use in this fight, so strafing. But you can do some really very efficient lines with strafing, especially like the very first room in the cafe. There's a couple of strafe lines in there that speed up the room drastically.
This moth is pretty interesting because it's got like 3 seconds of iframes after you shoot it, and it's like the only enemy to have that.
Oh, it Really?
Yeah, so you can't just sit there and spam shotgun shells into it. You just have to.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
And I would wonder why it would take so many shells to kill.
Maynard said, blimey, that dude on the left is good looking.
This bloke. On my
That
left.
one?
Your left. I could be a good looking bloke, I reckon.
Damn right.
So with quick turning, I always come back to this game if I played a lot of Resident Evil, and instead of quick turning, I always end up doing that cute little jump back. Because in Resident Evil, it's square back, I think.
Yeah, Resident Evil 3, yeah, square and down does the quick turn.
Whereas in this game, it's kind of like Harry kind of prances backwards. And I don't see anyone ever use it. I think they were trying to add it into the game as kind of like a dodge to avoid enemy attacks.
It's so clunky, and it kind of has the same delay as the quick turn too. It takes forever for him to actually perform it. So yeah, now that the antique shop's out of the way, and this is the map that I have no control out of.
He just looked at the map. Look at that, he's cheating. He doesn't know how to run the game.
This is so good what they did here. They just teleport you straight to the school. Like, they knew that people would not enjoy running from the hospital all the way back to Midwich Elementary, so they were like, let's just teleport the player there.
They also do it with the lighthouse too, so you don't have to run through that mess of a dock or jetty.
Yeah, where you get about 5 frames per second. Yeah.
So this is this. Oh, I didn't see you there. I say a lot to everything, and over the months I've started sounding like Sigurd from Dark Souls 3, and she will never not mention it every single time I make a noise now.
Sig Daddy.
I almost think this is one area of the game where people definitely get lost, because this is just one of those areas where, unlike a lot of other, unlike the town, a lot of the areas in this, a lot of the camera angles and rooms in this area look very similar, except for this room. This is like your landmark. If you're there, then you can kind of reference yourself, but once you start leaving that area, it's so easy to get lost.
Plus, for first-time runners, you start to get so used to the radio making noise when monsters are here, but since you're underground, the radio doesn't work, and there's no noise, there's no nothing, just stuff's attacking you. Which I find is really interesting, because you start to really get accustomed to hearing that radio go off, and all of a sudden you're just thrown in the deep end by yourself.
Oh, that's a cool observation. I never picked that up. It's cool that the radio, it doesn't work because you're underground. Nice little curveball towards the end of the game, just to throw you off balance.
Yeah.
But it makes sense in the context of the game as well, that it doesn't work.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like they did really well with that little aspect of realism almost. But yeah, the sewers are... There's a ladder there, Harry. Go use it. I feel like they were the worst to learn alongside the hospital, just because of how much of a labyrinth it really is. Different bridges are broken and different places all look the same. You can't tell the difference, and you start getting turned around, and once you're lost, that's it.
Yeah, they do a lot of things in this game, intentionally or unintentionally, through the the aesthetic of the game, to kind of throw the player off. Like in the school, for example, when you are about to get the shotgun, there's 2 doors for the restrooms, and if you go into the first door, it actually changes the corridor, the geometry of the corridor that you came in from. So you go in, and then you come out, and then there's a wall blocking your way forward. And then if you go back in, it turns back to normal. So, yeah, a lot of things in this game just kind of throw the player off and confuse them.
If I can make one mention, to somebody in the chat who put up the Silent Hill world record, none of the cutscenes in the game actually matter, count towards the time for any speedruns, and each ending has a different ending.
Yeah.
Timing.
Yeah. So put some more detail into it, thank you, by the way. Yeah, so anytime that the game is playing a cutscene, anytime I'm going through a door, the in-game timer pauses. So in a usual run, you know, if you get like a 33-minute run, the real time will be like an hour, give or take. It's almost double. I'm on danger. Which I think is nice, but obviously it makes a bit of a pain trying to focus on which time to count, which one matters. But yeah, overall the in-game timer at the end will probably be around 38, 40 minutes. Thanks, Harry. Based on that, and yeah, because it's a good ending as well, we'll be doing a couple of extra things.
Be a little longer.
Yeah, a little bit longer.
Longer because you're bad.
Oh, anyone who saves Kaufman's bad. Which, speaking of, he'll be coming up here in the... I don't know what it's called. I'll just call it a cafe. Why not?
It's Indian Runner? Or was it a different place?
Didn't you
That's
start
the
at the
other one.
cafe?
We did... yeah, we started at a cafe, but there's another one here. Annie's Bar, that's it. That's the name.
It's a bar.
Yeah.
So this whole area that ICEMAN's about to do now is sort of made up of like 3 buildings, I think it is. There's like 3 buildings you visit, you collect some different items. There's a hotel, a couple of bars, a convenience store. And it's basically, in terms of the story, it's Harry sort of uncovers some of the conspiracies sort of running in the underbelly of the town. There's sort of like a drug manufacturing and sale operation running in the town. And the proceeds from that run the cult that... Unfortunately, we don't really get to see too much into in the speedrun, obviously, but there's a cult that sort of runs the town, and they're all hooked in with the hospital, and Kaufman's the head of the hospital. So this whole part of the game is about uncovering that side of the story.
Do we have a bit of time for a few donations here?
Yeah, feel free.
Awesome stuff. We had $10 earlier from Dog Ryan 100, passing on this $10 to cross the $8,500 mark for the marathon. Also, speaking of Stranger Things and Silent Hill, Cheryl, wake up. I don't like this. Cheryl, wake up. We also had $10 from Zesty Mato, who says, whoop whoop. We had $5 from Rubina Z, who says, if I let one rip in Silent Hill, is it still Silent Hill? Also, good luck, I see you got this. We've got $40 from Vogsy. He says, please put this towards runner or commentator's choice.
Anything? Any comment? Do you have something you want, Devo? Because
I just really want you to do the Good Plus ending, but I don't think you collect the items for it so that we see the Sybil Electric Boogaloo. But everyone put the money in for the good ending, so let's do that.
I'll put it to Devo's Doom Eternal run.
I was going to suggest Devo's run as well.
Oops,
Perfect, I can do that for you. And we also had $5 from Anonymous, who says, Devo, could you tell us your thoughts on 2022 Hideo Kojima masterpiece and AAA Game of the Year, Ghostwire Tokyo?
Look, given I only played the game for about 5 minutes, I'm probably not in a position to give a well thought out opinion, honestly. I don't think Hideo Kojima made that game either. So
we've pretty much got to the end of this optional resort area. I just got to grab these and check out Kaufman's bike, which unfortunately we won't get to see it, but he gets really upset that you're playing with his bike. And then that's it. That's pretty much what determines it being a good ending. Should you have just kept running and gone across the bridge, it would have been the difference between bad and good. Also, that's a romper, I don't like that. With the bad ending, you end up fighting the incubator, and with the good ending, you end up fighting the incubus. So the final boss is completely different depending on the ending that you have. So we've got probably the most irritating part of the run, I guess, would be running towards the lighthouse, because it's just like earlier when we were going to the control bridge just before the church, sorry, just after the church. Harry's turning circle just makes things an absolute mess, and it's going to be a huge part or huge factor coming up here. Usually you're flying. I don't know why you're standing.
I don't know what they're laughing at, but it's making me
Yeah.
nervous. I'm trying to reach out. What's
I'm looking
going
at the
on?
chat, and there's some sort of joke going on, but
I'm terrified that I've like forgotten something. And
no, it's whatever they're laughing about.
We got
It's
3 of the shotgun shows.
whatever they're laughing about. It can't be that funny.
so yeah, this is the jetty dock, whatever you prefer to call it, and it's just filled with every single enemy in the game.
It's filled with every enemy of the game, but no frames per second. They couldn't fit any of those into this area.
Ryan said you forgot to save Meryl.
Yeah, we don't. I'll save Meryl, but Mango has to remind me that there's a bomb in my inventory. Cool. So this is the lighthouse we spoke of earlier, where it is a lot tighter than Harry's turning circle.
This is also where, if you were doing the UFO ending, the game would more or less end, I believe.
Yeah. So with the UFO ending, you get a channeling stone that can only appear on New Game Plus. You pick it up at the convenience store, and then at 5 different locations, being the school roof, hospital, boathouse, the car park that we were just at in the resort, pardon me, and at the top here. Once you use all 5 in that order, or in the correct order, should I say, because that was not the right order at all, UFOs will abduct Harry at the top of the lighthouse there, and the credits will start rolling.
So at the top of the lighthouse there, Harry meets Alessa. Again, we've actually bumped into Alessa at the school as well. But she's completed she's been drawing all these symbols all over town to try and seal the town away, essentially. Because what's basically happening is Dali is essentially trying to summon a god, and Alessa is kind of like the hero of the story, and she's sort of trying to stop that from happening. So she's going all over town, drawing these seals, and it's effectively just moving the town into a different realm, more or less, to stop it from happening, or to stop it from getting out, essentially.
Yeah.
So you think Alessa is doing something bad, right, by creating all these nightmare realms, but as you get further into the story, it turns out she's kind of like the hero of the story.
So we've got our second sewer section here. Thankfully this one's not as bad. Kind of just do a U-turn and head up to the amusement park. But we'll get to see the Mumblers, which for most people that's probably played this game casually, you would have played on the PAL version, being Australia, or Europe of course. The grey children in the school weren't there on the PAL version because it just kind of went against our classifications. That was a little bit too much for our nature, I guess, or our government, whatever was the decision maker. So instead they replaced them with these little bear things that are about to appear in this section here. They're called Mumblers. So that's what would have been in the PAL version of the school. However, we'll be running on the American one today. Now my biggest fear is usually with the bad plus, you'd go up here and you'd use the Evolphidus on one of the little ghost children, and it kind of performs this amazing glitch where Harry just... How would you describe it?
I would literally describe it as the electric boogaloo. The animation, it's so weird. They fly, they're on like a carousel that you'll see in a moment, and the character models just get stretched and flip and fly all over the screen.
Oh, there's the merry-go-round.
All right.
It's beautiful.
PowerPoint slide.
But yeah, my biggest fear is because I've done that so much, I've kind of forgotten the route. Oh, I have forgotten the route. Nice. The route of the amusement park.
Yeah, it's a really weird glitch, but it's super useful because we're not doing the glitch in this run because we're not going for good plus. We're not saving Sybil. So, but you basically just find one of those little ghost babies and you pour this solution on them, and the game just teleports you right into the boss encounter area. Cutscene happens and it's over, and you laugh a lot while it happens.
Ghost babies?
That's what they look. Yeah, that's what they are.
I think I've always called them ghost penguins.
So what's the actual strat for this fight when you're playing the game casually? Because it's kind of a hard fight, right?
Yeah, so she has 4,000 HP, I believe, and that's not good. Thanks, Harry. When you take down half of her health, she'll just drop her gun, or alternatively, she's only got 10 bullets. So either or, she'll eventually just drop her gun and then start trying to strangle you. And I guess the best way is just to aim at her and walk backwards. Or alternatively, if you're using melee, what am I doing?
She's got one of those larvae on her back as well, the same way the hospital staff did as well. It's like a parasite that kind of infects people.
But there might be a better strat. I kind of just go to town on her with a shotgun and hope for the best, really. And now we're into the final area of the game called Nowhere, which the area in itself is technically a puzzle because the architecture makes no sense. There's no map. Doors will warp you up different floors and you'll pretty much just be everywhere. And along that, there's like 5 or 6 different puzzles within the area to solve.
Harry.
And they've kind of replaced the enemies with puzzles, which is quite nice. In my opinion, at least, I like puzzles. So.
Yeah, this is, I think of all of the Silent Hill games, this is definitely my favourite finishing location for the game because, it, I guess reuses a lot of assets, but it does it in a really useful way because you feel like, oh, I know this corridor, or I know this room from the school, or this, stairwell from the hospital, but it's just organised in a way that totally throws you off.
So yeah, like the game kind of warps you back. It's like, oh hey, here's the school again, and here's a bit of the hospital. It's just a whole mess. And there's a notorious puzzle that a lot of people on their first playthrough will mistake for something else, which I know. Did you do that? Struggle with that one a bit? And I know Shadow did as well a little too, which was
I
fun.
didn't. No, not at all. I got it first go.
Referring to the 3 plaques that you have to with the keypads. Yeah, I totally read way too far into that puzzle.
I actually got that one pretty easily.
You did actually.
The one after I fumbled.
With the one with like the buttons that you press? Or?
Yeah, the letters.
Oh, that one.
Alert.
Yeah. Shadow took ages to get that one as well. He was like an hour in and his head was exploding, and then he worked it out and he was kicking himself.
So in this room, there's 4 plaques on the walls, and then there's 3 more on this pillar. And the idea is that you're meant to work out that the numbers match the number of limbs that each thing on each plaque has. And when I played it, I thought they were star signs. And I was like, oh, what month is this one in? What number month of the year is that? And it's way simpler than that. It's literally just the number of arms and legs they have or don't have.
You end up spending 30 minutes of your life focused on the wrong idea.
30 minutes, that's a bit modest. You've got to throw for content sometimes.
Just real quick, do we have a bit of time for a few donations?
Yeah, go.
Awesome stuff. They've been absolutely rolling in today. We have $50 here from Maynard, who says, I like speedruns and I don't like cancer. Have some money. Devo is cute.
You got a fan.
Oh, the Devo fan club's just rolling in today because we have $20 from Volky who says, I wonder if we're going to be blessed with the great Devo Kaufman dub. And finally, we have $5 from Caven Splace who says, fart noise.
On your placey.
Good old placey.
I'm just sorry, the delayed reaction from Harry when the glass explodes. Like, I laugh at the game, but to be fair, this game was like really, really good in terms of the voice acting and the presentation. Now you like listen to voice acting in it and you're like, it's a bit weird, but you have to remember we were playing Resident Evil 1 just a couple of years before this game came out, so a lot changed in 2 years. And also, I'm pretty sure that within 5 years, Konami made the first 4 Silent Hill games. So, like, for them, like, you compare SH1 to SH4, and that 5 years, they just innovated so much and changed how they build games, and the level of quality they went to is pretty phenomenal.
One can only like dream of another Silent Hill or a remake at this point, but I don't care how much it was or is, I'd pay for it after it. I'd love to play either a remake of this or just something new.
As long as it has the Sybil glitch in it, I'm okay.
Oh, Harry.
I'd find it amusing if they added the glitch as it is, but included the old cutscene for it as well.
So, only a couple more keys to collect, and then we've got the final boss. Oh.
I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty certain the keys are named after some deities that the cult in this game, in this series, worships. So you're collecting these different keys to get access to this ritual that's happening down in the very bottom of nowhere. Just the name of this location is literally called Nowhere in the game. So what happens, ICEMAN, if you don't use the Ring of Contract there?
Ah, good question. Good question. Glad you asked. If you forget to put the ring on... No, thank you, Harry. If you forget to put the ring on that chain, as you pull the sword out, which was kind of like locking the fridge, just a random tentacle comes out, pulls Harry into the fridge, and just insta-kills him for no good reason. And the game doesn't tell you this. The game has absolutely no reason to. If for the first playthrough, you're just going to grab the sword and run, and then all of a sudden you die, and you get taken back to wherever you last saved. Which can definitely be quite annoying.
Game developers back in the 90s were just absolutely ruthless.
What I find really amazing and funny about the Silent Hill speedruns is the fact that absolutely none of it makes sense. You're picking up random items, you're opening bags of everything to try and find items that you would never find. It really takes a lot of time to be able to go through the whole game and find each individual item that you need for the story specifically.
Yeah. Like just a second ago, Harry just finds a bag of 39 flavoured jelly beans and has the audacity to open and then drop them. But fortunate enough for him, there was a key inside.
But for how that makes sense, just you've got no idea unless you find it.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to be able to find all of the items that are contributing to the game.
It's definitely a lengthy game, and okay, that's fair. I do enjoy watching people play it for the first time, because it's one of those games where if ever given the chance, I would love to experience it as if it was my first time again. It's a great game to play, I feel like, especially if you're either into retro or horror games.
Yeah, the speedrun for Silent Hill games in general is like super easy to get into. You just need to learn the route and get the movement down pat. There's not really unlike Resident Evil, you have an unlimited inventory in these games. So, except for Silent Hill 4, it's a little bit different. But mostly it's just learn the route and get a handle of the movement.
Unlimited, but you can't grab the 2 plaques at the same time. God forbid.
Yeah.
Oops. Just making sure I grabbed one too many shotgun shells, so we got plenty. I'll just unload into the final boss. That was my biggest fear with this ending, was just making sure I had enough ammo, because killing Sybil is an extra 12 shells, and usually when I do a bad plus ending, I only end with 2 or 3 left.
You're going to be doing max doughies to evade the boss's attacks.
I wish. I wish. I'll explain that in the credits for sure. But unfortunately, it only takes like 5 shots, so I'll just unload into him. He takes more damage when lightning appears around him, so it's no real point shooting prior. And that's the end of the game there. Good time.
GG. So, what's your IGT PB for this category?
I've never run good before. This is technically my first.
Oh, it'll be a PB then?
Yeah. But with bad plus, I've wiggled it down to like 33 minutes 50 or 34 minutes like 6 seconds. I can't remember. It's been a while, but like either low 34s or high 33s. A lot of my time loss is definitely with the rumper glitch. That's for sure.
That was pretty good. I think it was 4 attempts, that right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Just trying to. I can skip the credits and just get the in-game time if that's right. Yeah.
These games are always super surprising when you get to the IGT at the end, the in-game time at the end, because you may not realise how much the in-game timer pauses. These games are super generous, Silent Hill games.
Unfortunately, I can't skip this one cutscene. It's great. But while it's quickly playing, the Max Dowies reference was Devo playing in 2018, and the easiest way to defeat the boss is just running around in circles, or Max Dowies as you will, and it can't hit you.
I think was on like danger, and I had 2 healing items or 1 healing item or something, so I just had to run Max Dowies until the boss died.
Dowies.
Yeah, Harry needed a wheel alignment after that boss fight. I really hope the number 37's in your IGT, by the way.
So,
like, I will be amazed.
I'll do a knife only if it is.
So this is the canon ending where Harry ends up with essentially another child, and that baby girl goes on to appear in Silent Hill 3 as the main character, Heather. The music in this game is so good.
Cool.
you just said the music was good.
I know, but
Skipped it. No.
one more cutscene to skip. Alright, so this is the final result here. The in-game time. Oh.
Yes!
Oh my god!
That's awesome. Oh, I'm so happy with
that. That one there is Silent Hill. Thank you, everyone, for the donations, being here, everything. It's amazing to be here again. Thank you, Koodles and Devo, for being here, and everyone in the crowd and being here to support everything. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you.